While these strategic strikes completely choke the macro-logistics of the peninsula, this immense pressure instantly translates into a terrifying operational vacuum for Russian troops holding the direct lines of contact in the Donbass, Zaporizhzhia, and Kherson directions. Deprived of a steady influx of fresh artillery shells, spare parts, and diesel, frontline units are being systematically isolated. On the battlefield, this isolation is finalized by the relentless presence of high-speed, highly maneuverable FPV kamikaze drones. Russian assault groups, no longer able to rely on heavy armored formations due to the density of the aerial threat, have resorted to utilizing light, fast transport methods, off-road ATVs, quad bikes, and motocross dirt bikes to rush small groups of infantry toward Ukrainian positions. But the drone ecosystem adapts faster than human fear. Roads and dirt paths leading from the ruined bridges have become monitored kill zones. Day and night, heavy Ukrainian bomber drones, operating in absolute sync with agile reconnaissance quadcopters, pick apart these light vehicles miles before they can ever glimpse a Ukrainian trench. The technical superiority of these aerial systems has reached an evolutionary peak, rendering standard Russian electronic warfare, defensive domes, entirely obsolete. To counter the massive deployment of localized radio jamming stations, Ukrainian engineers have integrated advanced onboard artificial intelligence, neural networks, and computer vision directly into standard FPV strike units. This technology alters the traditional remote control dynamic. When an FPV drone enters a heavily jammed sector and its radio frequency with the operator is severed, the machine does not fall. Its internal processor takes full control of the terminal flight phase, autonomously recognizing the visual shape of a moving vehicle, a motorbike, or an underground dugout, and tracking the target with mechanical accuracy until impact. Alongside this, the deployment of innovative fiber optic drones, which trail an ultra-thin physical glass cable through the air, allows pilots to completely ignore radio interference and casual fly directly into the most heavily shielded command posts, neutralizing local leadership. Ultimately, this monumental focus on technological supremacy, precision drone strikes, and infrastructure denial is driven by a profound, unyielding respect for human life. Ukraine faces an adversary that possesses a vastly larger demographic resource and a brutal willingness to throw tens of thousands of its own citizens into senseless meat-wave assaults. Ukraine cannot and will not fight a war of attrition using human lives as currency. Every automated ground robot that evacuates a wounded soldier under a heavy blanket of morning fog, every remote machine gun turret that holds a crumbling strongpoint, and every single FPV drone that neutralizes a supply truck, a sniper nest, or shatters a critical bridge is a direct substitute for a living human being. These iron birds do not simply take the lives of the occupiers and destroy their multi-million-dollar transport. They serve as the ultimate shield, protecting the most valuable treasure Ukraine possesses, its people. They guarantee that the defenders holding the line across all the hottest directions today will have the opportunity to return home, hug their families, and rebuild a free, sovereign nation. The future of global military art is being written right now, programmed in lines of open-source code, and executed with the steady, unwavering hands of a generation that refuse to be conquered. The myth of an untouchable Russian stronghold in Crimea has been permanently shattered, written in bright lines of fire across their own sky. The air belongs to the innovators. The sky belongs to the defenders. The sky over southern Ukraine has permanently ceased to be a passive element of military geography. It has officially transformed into a relentless, high-precision digital grid where the fate of occupying armies and tactical supply routes is decided in a matter of seconds. What the world is witnessing today, in the first weeks of June 2026, is the execution of a masterful and clinical campaign of total logistical suffocation. The unmanned systems forces of Ukraine, operating in perfect multi-domain synchronization with elite assault regiments and special operations units, have initiated a structural dismantling of the enemy's critical infrastructure. The illusion of a secure, heavily fortified Russian rear in occupied Crimea has shattered permanently. Through a series of brilliant coordinated mass drone strikes, Ukraine has systematically cut the vital ground arteries connecting the mainland with the occupied peninsula, plunging the entire region into a state of severe logistical paralysis and panic. To comprehend the full scale of this ongoing operational disaster for the Russian occupation forces, one must examine the precise, rapid strikes carried out along the strategic bottlenecks of Crimea. Within a mere 48-hour window, Ukrainian strike drones completely re-engineered the logistics of the southern theatre. A devastating overnight operation near Armyansk targeted the crucial road bridge that served as the lifeline for Russian forces holding the lines. The strike was executed with absolute intelligence and engineering accuracy. Ukrainian reconnaissance drones had tracked and mapped a massive concentration of hostile logistics. At the exact moment of the attack, up to 50 Russian military trucks, heavily loaded with ammunition and thousands of tons of fuel intended to reinforce the front line, were packed tightly near the Armyansk crossing. A massive wave of precision strike drones breached the local air defense umbrella, igniting a cataclysmic series of secondary detonations that completely obliterated the entire convoy and left the key bridge permanently paralyzed and unusable. But this was only the first phase of a broader matrix of destruction. Simultaneously, synchronized drone swarms targeted and effectively destroyed alternative logistical corridors. Powerful explosions tore through the strategic bridges over the North Crimean Canal in the Preobrazhenka and Marne districts, as well as critical crossings near Stavki and the bridge leading to the Arabat Spit from Henichesk. Within days, another massive wave of autonomous drones executed a follow-up strike on the famous Chonhar Bridge, forcing the occupation authorities to completely shut down traffic along the R218 highway, the vital terrestrial connection to Rostov-on-Don. Gauleiters and collaborators have been thrown into a state of collective hysteria, admitting to severe structural damage that cannot be easily repaired under the crushing weight of international sanctions. In a single week of relentless aerial pressure, the land approaches to Crimea have been virtually erased, creating an immediate, acute crisis where fuel sales to civilians have been halted entirely because military fuel tankers can no longer enter the peninsula. The paralysis of road transport was compounded by a spectacular, targeted strike on the spine of Russian military mobility, the railway network. In a bold operation, an advanced Ukrainian drone successfully intercepted and struck a military train originating from Moscow as it moved deep inside occupied Crimea. The impact triggered massive fires and forced the immediate, complete suspension of all rail transit across the peninsula. Passengers were frantically evacuated by buses, stripped from local municipal routes, and the Russian state was forced to admit that all rail connections with Crimea have been severed, restricted solely to the immediate vicinity of Kerch. By knocking out both the railway infrastructure and the critical road bridges, Ukrainian drones have trapped the Russian group of forces in a logistical cage. An army that cannot move fuel, ammunition, or heavy armor across rivers and canals is an army that is already tactically defeated before the main ground engagements even begin.